We're going to get started tonight. Good evening to everyone who's here and who's joining us online. We're very thankful for your presence here and joining us online. Thankful for listening in. We are talking about interactions with Jesus. We are going through and finding some examples, trying to find a variety of situations the best we can of interactions with Jesus, how Jesus handled those interactions to maybe give us an example if we are in that situation or circumstance, to maybe to know how to handle it, maybe what to say, how to approach it. And we also are looking at the other side too, the person who is interacting with Jesus. What are their thoughts? Why are they thinking the way they think? Why are they doing what they're doing? What are they getting out of it? Does it make them better? Or are they making the right decision once they interact? And we're going to talk a little bit more next week on this, but we have this Wednesday and next Wednesday will be our last one of the quarter. But there's the there's the beginning, middle, and ending, like any story. Okay, there's going into the interaction, how you're going to approach it. Then there's the interaction itself, but then what comes out of the interaction? What kind of effect does the interaction have? I hadn't thought about this before, but I was just now thinking about it. And I don't want to get too deep in this because I don't know anything about it, but only what I maybe hear on television or what I don't even actually know anyone in person who's ever had to go to a Alcoholics Anonymous or go to maybe people who have a hard time with depression. They have interactions. I know when I was at Memorial Road on Friday night, they had a care group that met every Friday night. I never attended it, but I know who did it. Micah Hobbs, he was one of the ministers at Memorial Road. It was a big deal. I cannot think the name of it now. They met every Friday night, 7 o'clock, but it was interaction with people who had the same struggles they did. Maybe they, and like I said, I don't even really know what all went on, but I know that there's that. But obviously, what comes out of those interactions? What are the effects? How does it affect someone the rest of the life? Let's just talk about one we've already talked about, the young ruler. Okay? Like he wasn't ready to sacrifice everything he had. But so his interaction with Jesus, what we know, it didn't go well. He had an interaction and it didn't go well. We don't know what else happened in his life or what he learned, but it was like maybe he didn't get it. He had this face-to-face interaction with Jesus, and he had the lead up was good intentions. It was good intentions. It's like, okay, I'm going to, I want to follow him. I want this to go real well. Then the reality of the interaction hit of what he was told to do or asked to do, and then it didn't end so well. So there's always that there's the beginning, there's the middle, and then there's the end. What comes from it, And I want to talk a little bit more about that next week, but that's It's like a story, like a mini story that comes into each interaction. You have to know that every time there's going to be a consequence or a reaction when you go one-on-one with somebody or you interact. There's going to be something from it. If it's like, it might be, okay, you can tell this person, but you got to be ready for how they react to it. You can be honest with them, look them in the eye and tell them the hard truth and everything, but be ready because they may fire something back at you. We live in a day and in a world right now where we all want to know the why. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to know why. But you have to know when you ask the why and the person tells you the why, you got to be prepared because it might not be what you want to hear. And I've said this before, even from when I played basketball to now, when I played back in the 90s, it was still pretty much the coach said it, you did it. Okay? But now you got to kind of tell the kids the why. And there's nothing wrong with that. It really isn't. They have a right to know the why. But when you tell them the why, but if you want to know the why, you got to be prepared for what the why is and what comes after it. A couple of things. We're going to talk about John's interaction with Jesus. We're going to read some passages of their interaction with each other. And I don't know that there's any one real thing out of the interaction, but I felt like we needed to have some kind of, or cover some interaction between Jesus and apostles who were around him every day and through it and directly deal with it. And John, I thought, might be a good one to, you could, Peter, you could go through it all kinds, but I thought maybe look at that interaction between those two, kind of give us an idea a little bit with the apostles and what's going on there between that interaction between those two. But before we do that, a couple of things I have come across in the last week. My mom is from Palestine, Texas. She was born and raised in Palestine, Texas, and half my family lives in Palestine. And my grandma has deceased, but I would obviously go visit my grandma twice a year, but she attended the Church of Christ there, Crockett Road Church of Christ. It's the only Church of Christ I know in Palestine. There might be another one, but that's the only one I know. Crockett Road, they have a preacher. His name's Dan Manuel. If you ever get a chance on YouTube, just YouTube Dan Manuel. He's been the preacher there for over 50 years. Like 2 years ago, he'd been there for over 50. The whole time that I visited my grandma, that's the only preacher I've known him there. But he's a fabulous speaker. He also has a show with some of the other Church of Christ preachers in the East Texas area. It's called Give Me the Bible. They do it on Sunday mornings. You can get that on YouTube also, and they talk about different subject areas. I think some of you would really like it. It's called Give Me the Bible. But Dan Manuel, I listen sometimes to his sermons, and he's just a fantastic speaker, fantastic preacher. But I was listening to one of his sermons, and he was covering a variety of things, but he talked about 7 ways to be a better Christian, and what are we always trying to do? Why are we here tonight? We're trying to improve our relationship with God, right? We're trying to get better as Christians. And so, I don't know. These things you probably already know, but I'm like, we can reinforce them if you do. But I think anytime we can get something, especially in the middle of the week, that kind of encourages us or kind of reminds us of what we need to do to be better Christians, just throw it out there and share it. And he says he has 7 ways here, and I don't think any of these are something that we wouldn't have thought of if we were listing 7. I'm sure we would have thought the same ones, but someone in a different state who's preached at the same congregation for over 50 years might be thinking the same way you're thinking, which might make you feel good. I don't know. But like, hey, if I'm thinking and another Christian's thinking this way, maybe I'm thinking right. Okay? The first one is study the Bible every day. Yay? We probably could have done that. We probably could have been one that we would have listed. Study the Bible every day. Pray every day. Nothing new there, huh? We probably could have nailed either one of those. Follow in Jesus' footsteps. We do try to be Christ-like, right? That's one thing that we want to be like. We want to be Christ-like. Actively serve others. We've said this many times. A leader, what makes a leader really great is they're very much a servant. That's what makes great leaders, is they serve. That's one of the top, and that kind of makes no sense, does it? You're like, well, leader, well, they're the ones that telling everybody what to do. They're the ones that, but what did Jesus come to earth to do? He came here to serve, didn't he? And I know we've talked about this before, but I think that guys like Judas had a hard time understanding that. I really do. I think Judas really had a hard time with that. That didn't make sense to him, I don't think. Yeah, Judas. I think he had a hard time understanding that Jesus came here to serve. I think he thought Jesus came here to conquer. But I think I think that's something that Judas struggled with on that. But yeah. Be less influenced by the world. It's easier said than done, isn't it? Easier said than done, isn't it? Yeah, not all of us are outdoors people, though. My son is, but I'm not. I was born in eastern Oklahoma. I was raised in the hills. I was in one of the most popular places to outdoor there is in the United States. And I am no outdoors. My son was born in downtown Edmond, Oklahoma, was in his early years raised in Edmond, Oklahoma, and he lived outdoors all the time. Makes no sense. I'm not an outdoor, he is, but less influenced by the world. But you're right. I know what you're saying. And that is something. Grow in the fruit of God's Spirit. What does that mean? Grow in the fruit of God's Spirit. What do you take that to mean? Yep. They list them, don't they? Yeah. Never be content with yourself. What? What do you get out of that? Never be content with yourself. Continuing to get better. Continuing to learn, huh? I saw, too, a deal the other day that a guy was saying that Satan loves when we boast about something. because it's almost like we're inviting him to tempt us if we boast about something. You know? And that, that goes in a lot of areas. Never be content with yourself. I mean, obviously as a Christian, but just and that's just in general life, that's a good idea to continue to get better. Are you still trying to get better at your job, John? Or are you as good as you can be? Do you still learn some new stuff? You know, I talked to my kids today about technology. Technology is always improving. Like, what are we on? iPhone 15? Why didn't we just stop with iPhone 1? Huh? Because you think raise your hand if you think there'll be an iPhone 16. Yeah. Why? Why is there an iPhone 16? Yeah. The technology does continue to improve. Do you guys, I'm going to give you a little bit of a computer lesson. You know what the first form of technology was? When man made fire. Because technology is all about making your life easier. Better and easier. That was the first form of technology, when man made fire. Do you think that made those men at that time, you think that made their life better and easier when they made fire? Sure it did. Yeah. But there's 7 right there. There's 7 ways to be a better Christian. I just saw that from him, and I just thought I'd share it with you. Yes, ma'am. Right. Right. Yeah. Am I following Jesus' footsteps? Did I do that today? Did I grow in the fruit of God's Spirit today? And really, that's between you and God. You know, and God knows. I mean, I could be around you all the time, but really and truly, that's you and God that know those things. So the other thing I came across, now this wasn't from Dan Manuel, but like I said, if you get a chance to listen to him, Dan Manuel, Crocker Road, and also that show, Give Me the Bible. It's like a 30-minute show, probably a little bit like Search. I would compare it a little bit to Search, but now there's not one speaker. They're talking about one topic, but it's usually about 5 or 6 preachers in the East Texas area. And it's just straight Bible, what the Bible says. It's nothing, it's not opinionated. It's just what the Bible says in it. All right, so the next one is building healthy relationships. Let's tie a healthy relationship with an interaction, because we're about to talk about a real healthy relationship between John and Jesus, okay, and their interaction. This is a little bit of a lead into it, but some tips and where I found this at was from the Bible. Let's go ahead. I tell you what. Let's just go straight to the Bible. Let's go to Ephesians chapter 4. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 15. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 15. Okay, the first one they say is talk to each other. Talk to each other. That's the first tip. Okay, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 15. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become, in every respect, the mature body of Him who is the head, that is Christ. So what are we saying? What are we saying here when we say talk to each other? What are we talking about? What are we sharing? According to this scripture. Speaking the truth. What's the truth? We hear that a lot. What's the truth? Bible. Bible. You hear that a lot, don't you? Speak the truth. Speak the truth. Speak the truth. And then some people don't know what the truth is. Okay? We will grow to become, in every respect, a mature body. What does it mean to be mature? What's the difference between mature and immature? What's the difference? How do you know when someone's mature? Okay. Yes, go ahead, Sam. I'm sorry. Okay. What do you take that to mean? In these interactions that we've seen with Jesus, don't you think He was speaking the truth in love with these people? Don't you think that was a common thread? I mean, there's 13 weeks. You guys have, 1 week I wasn't here, but this is week 11. So 11 different times you have talked about an interaction with Jesus and someone. And has there ever been a time there that he wasn't speaking the truth in love? And what have we said throughout this quarter? They're trapping him. They're trying, he could have got frustrated and rattled. But he always spoke the truth in love. Bible. Or the Word of God. Yeah. Right. Well, and when Jesus says, I am the what? Truth and the light. Right, yeah. Sure. A lot of things that Jesus said along them days were kind of tough to get your mind around. You have to think about a good one. Mm-hmm. And we talked about that last week with Nicodemus. And how Nicodemus, it would be tough. You know? We're so lucky because we have a full set of the New Testament. Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. She said that word of that song, I thought about sincerity. Right. Yeah. But we might be wrong too. And if we are open to reason, then hopefully reason that maybe change. Right. Yeah. Just one of the, I'm trying to think how many people that I visit with that I'm going to talk scripture to. But I understand what you're saying. Right. Let's go to the second one. Be honest and trustworthy. Proverbs chapter 11. Proverbs chapter 11, verse 13. Be honest and trustworthy. Proverbs chapter 11, verse 13 says, a gossip betrays a confidence, but a trustworthy person keeps a secret. Can you keep a secret? Are you a vault? As they said on Seinfeld one time. Are you a vault? Somebody tells you something, it's a vault. You know a vault, you can't open it, right? You have to blow it up. You can't just in there. Are you a vault? Somebody tells you something, are you a vault? I think that one thing that can, if there's ever a thing that could really hurt a church family, it would be gossip. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's others, and you guys could come up in there, but boy, that seems to be at the top of the list, though. And the thing is, gossip is so easy to do. It is so easy to gossip. I mean, it is easy to do it. And gossip betrays confidence. Have you had your confidence betrayed before? Had your trust betrayed before? How did it make you feel when your trust was betrayed? Did Jesus have his trust betrayed? Yeah. But a trustworthy person keeps a secret. Nothing better than someone you can trust, can you? And when I was a kid, it was kind of like, okay, there was a saying, I got hundreds of friends, but I only have about 5 that I can trust. You know? You have, I know I do, I have like a core that I go to when I have a struggle in my life. I mean, you know, there's like a core there that I go to, you know, and we're gonna see here in just we're gonna read it here just a minute that Jesus, he had apostles, but he also had kind of a little core too that he had with those apostles. He had like a core of them, but yeah, there's nothing better, is there, than someone you can trust, especially with a secret, but just you can trust. Nothing better than that person, you know. All right, next one. Go ahead.
It goes so well. I've marked it. For lack of guidance, a nation falls. Put that with the verse above.
Right.
About confidence, gossip betrays confidence. It seems like that's going on all the time in our political situation.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's got something on somebody else they need to tell. And the nation looks shaky.
Good time to bring it up is while you're in front of the TV camera.
You know, that's the thing about social media. It's like a microphone to the world. It's like you have a microphone to the world. You know, tell a lot of people, or you hear a lot of people say, or you're telling kids that college kids, whatever, like the most dangerous 4-letter word is sin. That's like the most dangerous 4-letter word, is hit that sin button. You know? Because your life can change in a heartbeat. And you can say, oh, well, yeah, I can take it off. It doesn't work like that. Doesn't work like that. Especially if someone sees it before you take it off. You're not going to erase it out of their memory. But even if you take it off, they can still go back and find things on you. All right, let's go to the third one. Forgive each other. Okay, we're going to read about the parable of the lost son. Luke chapter 15, verses 11 through 32. Forgive each other. Luke chapter 15, verses 11 through 32. Get through this here. So Jesus is talking here. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, Father, give me my share of the estate. So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. And he spent everything. There was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am starving to death? I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to the father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Quick! Bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate, for this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him, what was going on? Your brother has come, he replied, and your father has killed the fattened calf, because he has him back safe and sound. The older brother became angry and refused to go in, so his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him. My son, the father said, you are always with me and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again, and he was lost and is found. Forgive each other is the same thing. Where does forget come into play? Yeah. If you forgive, do you also forget? I think God forgets when he forgives. Part of forgiving is forgetting. And one of the most popular sayings in the world is, I forgive, but I don't forget. That is one of the most popular things that you'll hear. And I'm not just talking television. I have heard people in real life say that. And I've heard Christians say that. They pop back up, huh? We are human. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. You, bingo. You're both. You said it. You're saying it too. You got to work at it. Work at it. You do. Sometimes you got to work at it even harder. Some people have to work at it harder than others. You got to work at it hard. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah. You got to want to. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Most famous words people say is, I'll never forget what that person did to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's life, isn't it? We've all dealt with it, haven't we? We've all dealt with it. But I know how we would feel if a lost child of ours came back. We would wrap our arms around that child. I'm talking about if it was your own child and they were lost and they came back. Yep. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Stuff like this happens today. This happened. It happens in wills. People's wills. And I have seen it firsthand. That's, you talking about having a brother turn against a brother or siblings turn against each other. That's where I have seen it personally, is in a will. Yes, ma'am.
Is that an example of money?
Well, it could be, but it might not even be money. It might be possessions. It might be land. It might be an animal. I'm just being honest with you. Yeah. Could be a lot of things. But yeah. All right, let's go to Philippians chapter 2. Philippians chapter 2. We're going to look at care for each other. That's the fourth tip from the Bible. Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4. It says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interest, but each of you to the interest of others." What does it mean to be vain? If somebody's vain, what does that mean? Okay? I think it's someone who stares at themselves in the mirror all day long, checking their hair. Yeah. But yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Caring for each other, you know. I'm going to give you an example of a team right now. If I tell Drake, I have a guy on my team named Kevin. I tell Drake, you're playing for Kevin. Kevin, you're playing for Drake. You're representing Blackwell, but you're playing for each other. That's who you play. I mean, that's a team example that I use with my team, you know. And what I like to do is I like to get someone who plays a lot and someone who doesn't play very much. You know, maybe it's one of the better players and I like saying, you play for him and he plays for you. You know, because they don't think they go together, you know, because one plays a lot and one doesn't play, but they're still playing for each other. You know? Yes, sir. And now you talking about a place to care for each other. Here's number one place right here. Like, this is number one. Is the church building. That is the place. Like, you know, where's the care? You know, Family Feud, top 100 answers. Number one, where's a care for each other place? Church. Should be the number one answer. Should be all 100 people say it. Because it is the number one answer. It is the number one answer. It is. Any other thoughts on these four? And we'll talk about Jesus and John here. We'll get to Jesus and John. Go to Mark chapter 9. And I don't think there's any one real huge thing out of this. I just want to share a couple of examples where they interact with each other. Let's start with Mark chapter 9. And these are in your handout, but let's go Mark chapter 9. Go down to verse 38. We're going to go 38 through 40. We'll go through some of these a little bit faster, but I still want to talk about some of them. These are just some interactions between John and Jesus. All right, Mark 9, verses 38 through 40. Verse 38, "Teacher," said John, "we saw someone driving out demons in your name, and we told him to stop because he was not one of us." "Do not stop him," Jesus said, "for no one who does a miracle in my name can in the next moment say anything bad about me. For whoever is not against us is for us." What do you think about that interaction? What's the interaction there? It's kind of a little bit of an awkward interaction, isn't it? I mean, John's saying this, but Jesus is like, now, be careful what you're saying here. You ever had someone tell you, be careful what you say? I grew up that being told to me, be careful what I say. I say a lot of bad things, but just like, be careful what you say, be careful what you say. Yes. I think his intentions were good, but yeah. 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 Let's go to Mark chapter 10. Mark chapter 10, let's read verses 35 through 41. Let's look at this interaction. Then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him. "Teacher," they said, "we want you to do for us whatever we ask." Okay, let me read that to you again. Teacher, they said, we want you to do for us whatever we ask. I think that's very interesting. Let's come back to that. What do you want me to do for you? Jesus asked. They replied, let one of us sit at your right and the other at your left in your glory. You don't know what you are asking. You ever had anybody tell you that before? Jesus said, can you drink the cup I drink and be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with? We can, they answered. Jesus said to him, you will drink the cup I drink and be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with, but to sit at my right or left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those for whom they have been prepared. When the 10 heard about this, they became indignant with James and John. What does indignant mean? Oh, these brothers.
They got a lot of nerve to ask a question like that.
These brothers.
Well, they're saying themselves are indeed special, closer.
In one of the Gospels said that their father came to Jesus and asked that one said, what's that on the right? That's even better.
Jesus picked some interesting people, didn't he?
He did use that as a teachable moment, though, when he got the point.
Always the teacher. Always the teacher. Always the teacher. Yes, you're 100% right, David. Always the teacher. Yeah. Let's go to John chapter 1. John chapter 1. I'm going to read 35 through 44. John chapter 1, verses 35 through 44. The next day, John was there again with two of his disciples. When he saw Jesus passing by, he said, look, the Lamb of God. When the two disciples heard him say this, they followed Jesus. Turning around, Jesus saw them following and asked, what do you want? They said, Rabbi, which means teacher, where are you staying? Come, he replied, and you will see. So they went and saw where he was staying, and they spent the day with him. It was about 4 p.m. Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, was one of the two who heard that John had, or what John had said, and who had followed Jesus. The first thing Andrew did was to find his brother Simon and tell him, we have found the Messiah, that is the Christ. And he brought him to Jesus. Jesus looked at him and said, you are Simon, son of John. You will be called, help me with that. Which when translated is Peter. And the next day, Jesus decided to leave for Galilee. Finding Philip, he said to him, follow me. Philip, like Andrew and Peter, was from the town of Bethsaida. What do you get out of this interaction? He looked pretty like he really wanted to have an interaction with Jesus. Look, son, look, the Lamb of God. And it has an exclamation mark in my reading. Okay, anything else out of that? Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think of that. That's a good one. Oh, yeah. Let's go to John chapter 19. Go to John, stay in John. Go to John chapter 19, verses 25 through 27. Near the cross of Jesus stood his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother there and the disciple whom he loved, what does that mean? Whom he loved. What do you take that to mean?
That's what John referred to himself as.
Okay. Standing nearby, he said to her, "Woman, here is your son," and to the disciple, "Here is your mother." From that time on, the disciple took her into his home. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, we've read that many times. We know about that. You ever had any thoughts on that? Yeah, so there was obviously something there with Jesus and John, like a strong friendship bond. And I'll be honest with you. I mean, when I think of friendships in the Bible, of course, I'm a huge David guy. You know, you guys know, I'm a huge David. I could talk about David forever and a day. But David and Jonathan. But honestly, the next one I think about, and I might be missing a lot of them, is I think about Jesus and John. That's the next one I think about. You know, it's kind of a distant second, but I think of that one too a little bit, you know. And John had to be, I don't think John was just there and he's like he said. I think there was, reason for that he used John. Yes. Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's go to John chapter 20. See if we can squeeze in these last couple. John chapter 20. Verses 1 through 8. This is the empty tomb. Okay, this is an interesting interaction here. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance. So she came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved. Says it again, and said, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him." So Peter and the other disciple started for the tomb. Both were running, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. So I guess maybe John was faster than Peter. He bent over and looked in and at the strips of linen lying there, but did not go in. Then Simon Peter came along behind him and went straight into the tomb. Now, does that not sound like Peter? That's Peter in a nutshell, isn't it? No, I'm going in. No thinking, I'm going in. As well as the cloth that had been wrapped around Jesus' head. The cloth was still lying in its place, separate from from the linen. Finally, the disciple who had reached the tomb first also went inside, and he saw and believed. What's the interaction here? What is the interaction? We've talked about it. It's one-on-one, another person, right? But it's almost like an object in John. Seeing Jesus not there is Jesus almost telling him, "I have risen. I'm not here. What I said was going to happen has happened." And John is reacting to it. He is reacting to what he knows he heard Jesus tell him. It might have been in a saying earlier, but he's witnessing it right now. That interaction is... it might be a little bit hard to understand, but it's still an interaction, but there's the end of the interaction. Is he's seeing what Jesus said. It's like, this is really happening. This is surreal. You know, you say, well, when this is over, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do this, and then that moment comes and it's surreal, and then you're like, okay, now let me make sure everything I thought was going to happen has happened. Okay, now make sure I got all my ducks in a row, and this is okay. It's happening. The interactions that John had had, here it is. Here's the end of that interaction. He sees he's not there. He sees it. And what Jesus had been saying to him. So, you know, about out of time, but the interaction between are these different interactions that we read about. They're things we can take, we can learn. I mean, you know, you learn a lot about a person through an interaction, don't you? You know, hopefully we learn a little bit more about John. You know, we just read about 3 or 4 interactions. We learn a little bit more about John. You know. I don't know about you, but like I have this, when I think of John or talked about, I have like he was awesome, like he was like one of the best apostles, like he, you know, but you can see that he sometimes didn't understand things either, you know, or the way he was about things. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Well, and I go back to what David has said the last 2 weeks. It's hard for us to believe that now in this where we're at, but you know what they were doing at that time. It was probably, you know, it's almost like if you could put yourself in their shoes, kind of thing. Yes.
Something that jumped out to me is John's writings.
Right.
But he doesn't refer to himself as I. He refers to himself in the third person.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
To me, it shows at least a taste of confidence.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what I kind of think about with John most of the time is that. You know. What else? Other thoughts? Okay, I have some things next week. I want to talk about what comes from an outcome, sometimes from a interaction. Some things I want to get your thoughts on as opposed to interactions. And we're going to talk about the last interaction with Jesus we're going to talk about next week is with his mom. Okay? That mom, that type of interaction. Okay? And that's what we'll end with.